In a world of monotony, where everyone behaves like they're supposed to and everything works like it should, those who break the mold in new and interesting ways are known as the absurd. Some of the absurd are performance artists, who have perfectly calculated how to elicit a reaction.
You're kidding! Judge.
Others are truly unhinged and make us question our own sanity as we look upon them.
Electric Hedgehog power! Pew! This will be me in my super mode.
This series will dive into both ends of the spectrum and everything in between.
Vape Nation!
They are the Absurds. On this episode of The Absurds, we will be talking about the one, the only, Christine Weston Chandler, otherwise known as Chris Chan. I have many videos on this channel dedicated to Chris Chan. Ever since I started, I have been documenting things that he has been doing, because I fancy myself a Christorian, which is the name of people who document Chris's history. Chris is, in my opinion, the most interesting human being who is currently alive, and perhaps the most interesting human being who has ever lived. He is, in fact, the most well-documented human being who has ever lived. We know more about Chris than we know about any other person, and that is for a multitude of reasons. And while I document Chris, and while many people who follow me on this channel follow me because they want to hear new updates about Chris, there are many people out there who don't really know what Chris is all about, and so that's what this video is for. This is not a comprehensive history of Chris. I will simply be going over the greatest hits. If you want to find out everything there is to find out about Chris, you can go to the Wikipedia, which documents all of his goings-ons. You can watch the amazing Chris Chan documentary here on YouTube. You can watch the Down the Rabbit Hole videos on Chris Chan and Sonichu. And you can watch the Legends of the Internet videos on Chris Chan and Sonichu. There's also a pretty good PewDiePie video about Chris Chan. Now, who is Chris? Why do people like following him? Or why are people intrigued by him? Why do we follow him as though he is a car crash that we cannot look away from? Well, let me start at the very beginning. Chris was born to two parents who had had previous marriages and who had had children in their previous marriages who were quite old. And it is possibly due to this reason that Chris was born with autism. Chris is a child of the 80s, and in the 80s and 90s we did not fully understand autism as a culture. And so when he was diagnosed with high-functioning autism as a young child, to his elderly, conservative in some ways, but democratic when it comes to politics, parents, they did not understand what to do. They did not understand how to raise him. It is partially due to this autism, and his social ineptitudes, and other mental illnesses that may come into play as he grows up, that Chris is the way he is. The problem is that there were outside factors that impacted his life that make it partially a tragic story. Now, as much as Chris Chan is a tragic figure, he is also not someone that I have much sympathy for. Chris Chan is a horrible human being who has done atrocious things in the past. He has hurt real people, and he has hurt fictional people. By fictional people, I mean that Chris has been put into situations where, had the people been real that he was interacting with, he would have done great damage to them. Over the course of his life, Chris was, let's just say, tricked into multiple friendships and relationships with people who did not have his best interest in heart, and who were not who they pretended to be. They would do this in order to document how Chris would respond to certain situations. They would record texts with him, they would save pictures of him that were sent in confidence. There is currently a pornographic video of Chris on Pornhub that he sent to someone who he thought was his girlfriend, but was actually a teenage male troll. There was someone that Chris thought was his girlfriend that he mailed his most prized possession to, and who destroyed it on camera and uploaded it to YouTube. For a large part of Chris's life, he was tormented by these online trolls who would tell him that they were his friend and then make him do horrible things and embarrass him. It was for this reason that Chris developed delusions that people were out to get him and that trolls were everywhere. I can tell you that if this had happened to a normal person would have developed the delusions that Chris Chan has. So, Chris's current state of mind is a mixture of the mental illnesses that he was born with, his poor diet that I am sure contributes to his poor mental health, and the harassment that he has suffered for his entire life. A lot of the information that we have from Chris comes from these people who pretended to be his friends and who logged conversations with him over the years, but a lot of it comes from Chris himself. You see, Chris is the creator of something called Sonichu. When Chris was in high school, he was tasked with creating an album cover in his art class, and he wanted to put Sonic the Hedgehog on it, because he was a very big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. Unfortunately, his art teacher told him that he could not use a copyrighted character in his artwork. Chris, frustrated, then had the brilliant idea to combine Sonic the Hedgehog with Pikachu the Pokemon, and create his own original character, Sonichu, the electric hedgehog Pokemon, which is a yellow-colored Sonic with red cheeks and a lightning bolt tail like Pikachu. Chris would then take Sonichu and create his own comic book starring the character. This series of Sonichu comics would last roughly one issue before Chris completely derailed the plot and began writing comics about his own life. It is from these comics, which are autobiographical, that we learned other parts of the Chris Chan story. For example, Chris personified his high school graduation as the villain in his Sonichu comics, because when he was in high school, he had friends, but once he graduated, he didn't have anyone. He had no one to talk to except for his elderly parents. There was an incident while Chris was in county college where he was looking for a girlfriend. He decided to create a poster asking for a girlfriend and hold it and walk around campus with it. He would also post signs advertising the Sonichu comics. Now, whenever Chris would approach a girl and ask her to be his girlfriend, her usual response would be that she already had a boyfriend, which I'm assuming is just what any girl would say when they wanted to get a creepy guy away from them but did not want to hurt his feelings or incur his wrath. So, Chris became convinced that every girl had a boyfriend. This led to him creating what he called the infinitely high boyfriend factor, which is that there are so many girls out there with boyfriends that it would be hard for him to find a boyfriend-free girl. He then began advertising on his poster that he would carry around that he was looking specifically for a boyfriend-free girl. There were other things on the poster that this girl had to be, such as white. Now, Chris walking around with a poster saying that he was looking for a white girlfriend did not escape the notice of the school he was at, and so he was called into the office of the Dean of Students, and the Dean of Students ripped up his sign and told him he could not carry it around school. Specifically, he was breaking a rule about soliciting sex on campus, which is illegal. Now, I do not think that Chris was actually doing that, but if they just needed to find a rule to get him to stop, I understand why they would say such a thing. Now, Chris, in his crazy delusions, decided that this woman was now solely responsible for the fact that he was single and could not get a girlfriend because she destroyed his sign and would not let him solicit girls on campus anymore. So she became the secondary villain in his Sonichu comic. He actually named the character directly after her, which is how people found all of his information out, but I will not be repeating her name here for privacy reasons. Chris also wrote several stories in the Sonichu comic about him getting kicked out of his local mall where he would go, also to solicit girlfriends using his sign, where the main antagonists would be the mall cops that would continually kick him out until he was eventually banned from the premises unless he was accompanied by one of his parents. Chris Chan's Sonichu comics eventually became quite famous online for their absurdity and people talking about their creator. They are very poorly drawn and traced comics, drawn with crayon and colored pencil, and people wanted to know what the true story of the 20-something-year-old behind these drawings that looked like they could have been done by an 8-year-old were. And that's how the fascination behind Chris Chan really began. People began digging up Chris's past to see if he was real, if he was just some sort of elaborate troll. And they found something that confirmed to them that no, Chris was actually someone who was diagnosed with high-functioning autism. When Chris was very young, he appeared on the local news because he won a national Sonic the Hedgehog contest. The contest was to watch the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, write down the code word that would appear in each episode, and then mail in the code words to the Sega headquarters.
Finally tonight, Sonic the Hedgehog is running wildly in the Chandler household this weekend. 12-year-old Christian Chandler of Charlottesville was the winner in a video game shopping spree. Christian is one of only about 100 winners nationally to receive $1,000 worth of Sega games and equipment. For his parents, it's just another example of how well he's doing. Christian is a high-functioning autistic child. This past fall, on his own initiative, he entered a contest based on a favorite cartoon character.
All I had to do was exactly watch Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, and I'd listen to what Sonic says at the end of it.
This proved to the internet that the Chris Chan who is currently drawing the Sonichu comics was the real thing. These people then created an Encyclopedia Dramatica page about Chris. If you do not know that website, think of Wikipedia, but everything that could possibly be said about a person is said as nastily as possible. If you go on any random page for any given thing, it is as if it is written by someone who hates that thing with all their burning passion. Chris then discovered this page, and he was none too happy about it because it was quite rude about him. Chris did not understand the conceit of the website and thought that people were merely misinformed, so he decided to go and edit his own page, which you can do because, just like Wikipedia, anyone can edit it. The problem is that Chris edited his own webpage in the first person, so everyone was immediately able to tell what Chris had changed and they would just change it back. Chris then got the bright idea in his head that in order to stop the trolls from spreading this misinformation about him on this webpage, he would give them the correct information. He informed them that he was diagnosed with autism. He also gave out details that he very much should not have, such as his home address and other identifying information, in what he called an information overload. He wanted to have so much information about him on the website that was true that it would drown out all of this false information. This did not work out well for Chris. There are some other early life stories about Chris that I find rather fascinating. When he was young, he had an illness. It was an infection in one of his eyes, and it actually changed the color of one of his eyes. So he has one blue and one green eye, which is interesting enough, but when you combine it with all the other stories about Chris, it's just another drop in the bucket. Now, Chris was born Christopher Weston Chandler, but when he was quite young, him and his very devoutly religious father went to the local mall during Christmas time, where there was an animatronic bear. The bear was controlled by someone at a distant location using a microphone and a speaker, and he was there to talk to children. Think of like a mall Santa. So Chris went up to the bear, the conductor bear, and the bear asked him his name, and he said Christopher. But because of the microphone relaying the information back to whoever was conducting the bear, the man on the other end heard Christian, so he referred to Chris as Christian. Chris and his father took this as a sign from God that Chris's name should be Christian. And so they legally changed his name when he was about 6 or 7 years old from Christopher to Christian. For quite a while after that, Chris would refer to the conductor bear as a very religious figure in his life. He would refer to God, Jesus, and the conductor bear as his messiahs.
And another thing, my name is not Ian! Brandon, something! I am Christian Weston Chandler! So get it through your damn fucking skull and call me the real name that God has been given to me and up there at Regency Square Shopping Center during 1989. You damn mocking bastard!
When Chris was a couple years old, his parents were out on a date and they left him home with a babysitter. The babysitter, who was probably not well equipped to handle an autistic child, at one point locked Chris in his bedroom. Chris was alone in his bedroom, surrounded by all of his toys and probably everything he could ever dream of being around to entertain himself for a couple of hours until his parents got home. That incident caused Chris to not speak a word for several years. When Chris was young, he apparently acted up while in school and was brought to the principal's office, where Chris alleges the principal and one of his teachers held him down roughly and manhandled him. His parents attempted to sue the school board but failed, and they got him transferred to a different school system. For many, many years afterwards, they would blame the principal and the teacher and the assistants who did that to him for his misbehavior. Chris, like his parents, was a devout Christian, and because of this, and because of his complete lack of understanding of anything to do with the religion, he found himself, let's just say, at ends with many communities. Perhaps due to his autism, Chris very much did not like doing things that he deemed dirty, such as drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, or saying curse words. To Chris, one of the most vile curse words you could say was the word gay, because he believed that gay men were evil. He would instead use the word Gabian. To Chris, lesbians were fine, probably because he watched so much porn of them. Chris, however, had absolutely no problem saying the N-word, which he said many times and called many people in his videos on YouTube, which he posted himself. It is, perhaps, quite surprising then, that after Chris turned 30, he came out as transgender and changed his name to Christine Weston Chandler. He considers himself part of the LGBT community and someone who stands up for trans rights against evil people like Donald Trump. Perhaps Chris identifying as a woman began when a troll sent him a bra in the mail because of his weight. Chris did not understand that this was supposed to be mocking him, and instead started wearing the bra. He decided that it was comfortable, and from then on would wear one. This deeply ashamed his father. However, his father would die shortly afterwards. There was a period where people online mocking Chris created a fake character. A fake, real Chris Chan. This person said that he was the real Christian Weston Chandler, that he was the creator of Sonichu, and that the person that we had all come to know as Chris was fake. This became known as the Liquid Chris saga, named after the scenario in the Metal Gear Solid franchise where there is a clone of a character. One is Solid Snake and the other Liquid Snake, and thus we have Solid Chris, who is the real Chris, and Liquid Chris, who is this imposter. The real Chris, Solid Chris, decided to challenge Liquid Chris to a contest to determine which of them was the real Chris. He decided that the contest should be a singing competition. Each of them would sing a song, accompanied by an instrument, and whoever won would be deemed the real Chris. Liquid Chris pulled out his guitar that he was perfectly capable of playing, and played a beautiful song that everyone agreed was magnificent. Solid Chris took out his Guitar Hero guitar that was unplugged in, pressed buttons at random, and sang a very hard-to-listen-to, off-key version of a song. Needless to say, Liquid Chris, who was not the real Chris, won the competition, and Chris was then supposed to admit defeat and admit that he was not the real creator of Sonichu. However, Chris said that the real creator of Sonichu and the real Chris Chan would lose any competition he was entered in. Thus, this whole thing actually proved that he was the real Chris Chan. This is perhaps more myth than fact, but it is said that Chris drinks so much Coca-Cola that his account has been banned from My Coke Rewards, which is a website in which you can enter the serial number on your Coke cap, and if you gain enough points, can gain real-life rewards. Chris apparently drinks so much Coke and has entered so many caps onto the website that they've banned his account. We know that Chris drinks about 2 liters of soda a day, and his diet consists mostly of McDonald's chicken nuggets. Since we all know that Chris is a massive fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, he was none too pleased when the Sonic Boom series of games came out, in which they changed the color of Sonic the Hedgehog's arms. Chris went into his local GameStop with some fan art that he had drawn himself of Sonic with the correct colored arms, and wanted to put it in the box of the display of the game on the GameStop shelves. He got into an argument with the GameStop employee and ended up pepper spraying the employee.
Don't call anybody.
Chris is obviously a very large fan of Pokemon, as Sonichu is a combination of Sonic and Pikachu, and he plays the Pokemon card game at a local gaming store. At one point, he got into an argument with a young child who was there and was kicked out of the store. When he went to apologize, he called the owner of the store a dirty Jew and was kicked out yet again. As he was leaving with his mother driving the car, the store owner outside the store continued to yell at them, and his mother hit the store owner with their car. Both Chris and his mother received probation. As I stated before, Chris had a deep, deep hatred for homosexual men, and as such, he hated anything that resembled a penis. In fact, he hated the word penis and refused to say it. Instead, he said the word pickle. Chris's hatred of penises extended to pickles, which he then hated. Sometime after Chris became popular online, he received a message from a girl who wanted to go on a date with him to a local mall. Chris and his father picked up the girl and drove to the mall and went out to dinner at a restaurant. Chris's father did most of the talking, and the girl seemed to be quite nice. There didn't seem to be anything strange about her. However, little did Chris know that she was actually running a sting operation. She, her real boyfriend, and another friend had driven across multiple states to come visit Chris in his home of Virginia and set up this fake date. She had her phone in her pocket, recording everything that was said, and her boyfriend, back in his car parked outside the mall, was listening in. As they left the diner, Chris then wanted to take the girl to a movie, but she said no and instead led him towards her car. As they rounded a corner, her boyfriend, dressed in a giant pickle suit, approached them. He asked the girl if she would rather go home with him, and she immediately said yes, and so she left Chris for the man in the pickle suit. This has been referred to as the pickle incident, and Chris has forever cursed the man in the pickle suit. When Chris was younger, he believed that he had magical powers, specifically the power to curse people with a move that he called the Kursehameha, which is a mixture of the word curse and the Kamehameha from the Dragon Ball Z anime.
Kursehameha!
Chris used his Kursehameha on many of his opponents online, as well as the dean of the college that suspended him for the sign. At some point, Chris got it into his head that I'm not quite sure how to start this next anecdote, but at some point Chris got it into his head, perhaps from watching too much pornography, that semen is meant to be ingested in the mouth. And so, whenever Chris ejaculated, he would do so into a cup of orange Fanta and then drink it himself, because he believed that it needed to be recycled if it was not going to be used for its proper use. And there is evidence, video evidence, of Chris doing this. It is not believed that he does so anymore, but he certainly did it for quite a while, and I would like to move on from this topic. Chris's mother and father were both hoarders, and so in the several times that Chris would show bits of his house in videos that he uploaded to YouTube, you would see just how horrible the conditions he was living in were. Several people over the years would call the police and social services on Chris, so they would come and investigate the house and in hopes of condemning it, but none of them were successful. Several years ago, Chris accidentally burnt down his house as he had plugged in a toaster or a microwave to a faulty outlet in his bathroom, and the clutter in the house had caught fire. Him and his mother had to be relocated to a motel for several months, and Chris Chan was once again on the news.
Greene County investigators are looking into the cause of a house fire early this morning. It started at about 3 o'clock this morning at a home on Branchland Court. That's in the southern part of the county. We're told the fire started in a first-floor bathroom, but got quickly out of control and eventually shot through the roof. Everybody inside was able to get out safely, but one firefighter suffered minor injuries. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
There are many, 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 many other stories about Chris Chan through the years that his life has been being documented on the internet. They're mostly broken up into arcs, story arcs, and sagas of things that happened. There are stories including him being forced to smash his own PlayStation. There are stories of girlfriends who died in fires. There's a story of someone who convinced him to drive hundreds of miles to save someone's life who did not exist, only for him to then realize he'd been tricked and drive back. There are stories of him bullying people. There are stories of him telling his fans that he dislikes them. There are many, many stories about Chris. But I believe that the most recent are the most interesting. You see, Chris believes, perhaps due to a combination of watching too much Futurama or Rick and Morty, that the fictional characters in his Sonichu comic exist in some parallel universe. He believes that everything that is possible exists in a parallel universe, and therefore his stories do too. He is therefore very angry when people draw incorrect fan art of his characters or draw them doing things that he believes they would never do, such as engaging in homosexual acts. From this point, Chris then became convinced that he was in contact with his characters from this other dimension. Through this, he became convinced that he was a deity. He was a god. He talked to the characters from this other dimension and eventually formed a relationship with multiple of them, and he believes that he is now married to some of them. He believes he is married to 3 of his Sonichus and to Mewtwo from Pokemon. He believes, and he has gained all of this information from one of the highly intellectual psychic-type Sonichus from the other dimension, that our world and the dimension that houses all of the fictional characters are soon to cross over in what he calls the dimensional merge. During this merge, people who have created fictional versions of themselves in fan art, in fan fiction, or in real fiction will combine with them fictional selves. Other people will merely get to meet their own favorite fictional characters. However, he believes that some people will die in the merger, specifically people who do not have kind hearts. He has specifically singled out artists who are only in it for the money, businessmen, soldiers, politicians, and especially Donald Trump. He therefore wishes that everyone out there hear his message, have a change of heart, become good people, and so when the dimensional merge happens, they will be allowed to cross over to the other side, where anime, My Little Pony, video games, and Sonic the Hedgehog are all real. He predicted a date for this dimensional merge, and that date was December 18th, 2018. That day came and went, with no such merge taking place. However, Chris is sure that it will happen soon. Chris describes tingling sensations that he gets in his body as if electricity is running through it, and he believes that he can see and talk to characters that exist in this other dimension. People have theorized, perhaps due to his mental illness, or perhaps due to his poor diet, that he is experiencing seizures, that he is instead interpreting as visions. At the moment, Chris's father is dead. His mother is very elderly and mostly incapable of caring for herself, let alone her mid-30s autistic son. And nobody knows what will happen to Chris should his mother pass. He has never had a job. He is probably incapable of having a job, especially with his history on the internet. He has no money. He spends most of his money on toys, especially Legos. He spends quite a bit of money on DLC for video games that he does not own because he wishes for Sony to win the console wars. And he is not in the least bit responsible. I spoke before about the kitten incident in which his lack of responsibility led to the death of a very young kitten, and this is merely one story that is emblematic of his inability to care for himself or anyone else. Nobody knows what will happen to Chris. I don't know what will happen to Chris. I do not wish harm upon Chris, as much as I dislike him, as much as I laugh at the ridiculousness of the things that he says, as much as I am angered by him presenting himself as an all-seeing God, as much as I cringe at him telling companies what they should and shouldn't do if they want to be successful, especially companies that he admires, such as Sega and Funko Pops. As much as I dislike Chris and think that he is a terrible human being, I do not want anything bad to happen to him, and I do not approve of people bullying and harassing him. I think Chris should be studied, and I think that we deserve to watch Chris. As I said at the beginning of this video, I believe he is one of the most interesting people to ever exist. One day, Chris will not be here, and when that day comes, I guarantee you that documentaries and dramatizations in the form of films will be made about him. But until that day, I think we should all continue to enjoy the ride. From the beginning, Chris's life has been getting steadily crazier and crazier, up until the point now where he believes that he is a godlike figure leading a cult that will cross people over to another dimension if they are good enough, where they will get to meet their favorite animated characters. That is not something I could possibly have predicted Chris would do 5 years ago. So now I really have to wonder, what is Chris going to do 5 years from now? I have a series on this channel where every week I go over the weekly updates of what Chris has been doing. I also have this series on my channel, The Absurds, where I talk about other figures like Chris who are equally as absurd. Some of them are truly deranged like he is, and some of them are merely putting on an act for entertainment. If you want to follow me on Twitter and talk to me about Chris Chan or any other topic, you can follow me at GIBI_Devon, which is spelled DEVON. Talking about Chris Chan for a very long period of time tends to make me quite sad. He has led a very long and difficult life. Most of it is his own fault, but not all of it is. And whatever happens to him next will be quite unfortunate. Lots of people try to help Chris, but over the years he has proved that he is beyond anyone's help. I have linked resources in the description to other places where you can learn more about Chris if you wish to, and I hope to see you all next time.